When I was going through pronouns and conjugations, someone asked me what is the equivalent of the English pronoun it in French. You see, in English, the pronoun it is used for genderless and inanimate entities like objects, for example. So instead of saying the pen is on the table, you can say it is on the table. Or instead of saying I gave the key to you, you can say I gave it to you. But in French, nothing is really genderless because even objects have a gender. So there is no real equivalent to the pronoun it in French. So the third person is either il or elle. Now let's look at some examples. If I want to say the pen is on the table, in French, I will say le stylo est sur la table. Le stylo est sur la table. Now, if I want to replace the subject, which is le stylo, the pen, if I want to replace the subject with a pronoun, in English, I will say it is on the table. But in French, I will say il est sur la table. Il est sur la table. You see, I use the third person masculine singular. So it's almost like I said, he is on the table. But of course, in English, the appropriate translation will be it, because a pen is an object, not a person. Let's look at another example. If I want to say the key is on the shelf, in French, that will be la clé est sur l'étagère. La clé est sur l'étagère. La clé est sur l'étagère. Now, if I want to replace the subject with a pronoun, in English, I will say it is on the shelf. But in French, I will say elle est sur l'étagère. Because clé is a feminine noun. So you use the third person singular feminine form, which is elle. So it's almost like you're saying she is on the shelf. But of course, in English, the appropriate translation would be it is on the shelf because a key is an object, not a person. I'm sure you get it now. So you have to know the gender of the object you are talking about. And based on the object's gender, you have to choose the appropriate determiner or article or pronoun. Now, don't panic. Learning an object's gender is not that difficult. Number one, because even though there are thousands of words in any given language, not all words are nouns, right? And number two, even though there might be thousands of nouns, in everyday life and in everyday conversations, we only use a very limited amount of nouns. So, as learners, I think our initial and primary focus should be learning those essential nouns first. And don't worry, we will learn them together, okay? Now, there are two things I need you to keep in mind. The first thing is that even though there is no proper equivalent for the pronoun it in French, sometimes there's an equivalent to the expression it is. You see how in some instances you use the phrase it is to reference someone or something in English. In French, that will be c'est. C'est. So, for example, if I ask you who took the cake, which in French is qui a pris le gâteau? Qui a pris le gâteau? If I ask you who took the cake, you can reply by saying it's me. So, c'est moi. C'est moi. You see that c'est? That c'est means it is. C'est is made up of ce, which is a demonstrative adjective. It's like the equivalent of this or that or it in French. And est is obviously the verb to be, le verbe être. Another example is if, for example, you want to say it's you who did it. You are the one who did it. You will say c'est toi qui l'as fait. C'est toi qui l'as fait. So you see, This is the it is that is used to directly reference people or things, but it's not an actual proper equivalent to the pronoun it. The second thing I want to add is that when it comes to determining the gender of an object, there are patterns. So sometimes, based on how a noun is written, especially the suffix, you can get a clue of what the gender of that noun is. We will cover those clues as we go on. One clue is, for example, the fact that most of the nouns that end with the letter E in French are feminine nouns. Not all, but most of them. So a good at least 70% of them are feminine nouns. So for example, if I say the table is la table, the chair is la chaise, the weighing scale is la balance, the leg is la jambe. You see, they all end with E and they are all feminine nouns. That's why they use the article la. Go back and revise the lesson on articles. All right. And mind you, when I say E, I'm talking about the letter E without any accent on it. Because when E takes an accent, its pronunciation changes. So in this case, we are strictly talking about the letter E with no accent on it. So the four takeaways from this lesson. Number one, in French, objects have a gender. Number two, we are going to learn the gender of the most frequently occurring nouns first before moving on to the rarer ones. Number three, it is can be sometimes, and I mean sometimes, be replaced by the phrase se, depending on the context. And we mentioned the context. And number four, there are patterns for identifying the gender of a noun. And we mentioned the fact that most of the nouns that end with E are what? Feminine nouns. That's it for today. If you have a question, leave it in the comments. I'll answer it. It's bye for now. Au revoir.